That's right. Running cars, windows up, making a video, turn the AC on. Today's video, a phrase, a phrase that I heard a long time ago, but it made sense to me because I was doing it. I am a fan of small cars. I think you have more fun in a small car than some big, flashy, big horsepower, big wheel, muscle, sportsy supercar. Because I've lived both lives. I've lived the life of the regular car person, buying junker cars when I was younger, and even buying whatever I could as an older person. But I also had a car magazine for a while and got to do reviews on those cool cars that everybody wants to see, touch, take pictures of, be taking pictures beside, drive slow, drive fast, have dreams of, posters on the wall, that sort of thing. The phrase, you have more fun going fast in a slow car. You have more fun going fast in a slow car than you have going slow in a fast car. What does that mean? I don't know what it means to you. What it kind of meant to me was the cars I grew up in were cheap, little four banger Econobox cars. Boring economy, A to B, commuter versions of cars that they always made a sporty model of. And in those cars, they didn't have all the fancy electric windows. They didn't have a big V8, V10, V12 in them. Here in North America, it would be more common to have a V8. I mean, a V6 was a huge engine and scary. And I'll tell you in a bit why. I didn't want to go too much bigger than a four cylinder. And that's what I mean by slow car. There is no way a four cylinder car is going to match a V8, a V10, or a V12, except in rare circumstances during my era, such as the Lotus. But they had skinny tires on them, little tiny tires on them. They had no insulation in the doors. There was all kinds of road noise, wind noise. And if you bought to little something that was a little too much of a beater, you would hear banging and knocking and flapping and metal ticking, and you could hear the engine revving. You could hear the exhaust, as crappy as it sounded, coming out the back with no holes in the exhaust. Just because you drove the car around at max revs all day. And it was kind of exhilarating because you had all of this, this entire sensory explosion happening around you. The hearing of everything happening, everything vibrating, and your manual transmission, because manual transmissions were cheap. You didn't have to pay. The cars came with a manual, and you had to pay extra for an automatic. So you always got to, if you were buying a cheap car, you always ended up with a manual, and you always ended up having fun with the manual transmission. Agree with, hit the like button. Hit the like button if you agree with that one. Nowadays, the standard transmission is an automatic. And if you wanted an expensive car back in the day, especially if it was a domestic, it usually came with automatic. There's very rarely do you get a manual in a regular car, not some sports car. On some like family sedan. My point about this is that I did hang out and meet and drive cars with the exotic car clubs and the Porsche clubs and the BMW clubs and doing photo shoots. You know, the Audi R8 when it first came out. And hey, yeah, the cars are nice. Would I like to own one? Yes, I would. You know, generally speaking, what ended up happening with these cars though is they sit. Um, and when you do take them out, they're everybody's eyes are on it. If you drive a little fast in it, you don't have to go incredibly fast, but if you do drive a little fast in it on the freeway, going through town, something like that, people immediately pick it out. Go, that guy's a nutcase. You may not be going fast, but the car looks fast, sounds fast, moves fast. People aren't used to it, and you got the label. There's a stigma to that when you're driving cars like that out in real world traffic. If there's, especially if there's no other cars like that out on the road regular, so you end up having to drive slow in them wherever you go because they are meant for 180, 200 miles an hour, like ridiculous speeds for public roads, of course, right? And unless you do have a track, you'll never get to experience driving the car to its fullest because regular roads suck for driving at high speeds. There's curbs, light posts, ditches, other cars, pedestrians, oncoming traffic, dirt, gravel, oil, potholes, bumps, cracks every 30 feet, like on this highway. And in a super sports car, all of that means a terrible ride. Maybe not so much now in modern cars. They've learned to manufacture better rides out of them with all the technology that we have now. But as soon as you get a car like that out on the freeway, you want to hammer it down on the floor, and that's exactly what happens because that's really the only place or time that you can feasibly go kind of fast in those cars. Inevitably, some cop wants to pull you over. Maybe not to give you a ticket, most likely, but at the very least to talk with you and eye up the car. And maybe look at your girlfriend. So you buy this car that you pay hundreds of thousands or even, maybe $1 million for, and you very rarely do. It's a special occasion to take it out. Once, twice, three, maybe 5 times a year, especially here in Canada, you know, because it sits all winter. You don't take it out in the snow. It's in some storage shed somewhere with a battery tender on it. Somebody visiting it once a month, starting it up, maybe. And which is fine. If that's your thing, that's fine, right? However, what I noticed with guys with cars like that, They went and bought a boring car that was fun, and that's what they drove all day. And that car was saved for some special weekend, a car show weekend, or a show and shine, or a concourse, or you know, we're all going to Calgary to run the track, or we're doing a cruise out to Jasper, Banff. We're going to do the big loop in 3 days, 4 days, right? Highway miles, where they're not actually driving the most out of the car, they're driving around the speed limit, just like you would a regular car. And every now and again, flooring it, having some fun in a twisty bit of road, or get some excitement, run the car, right? And that is the thing about sports cars, sports focused cars, is that you do have to run them, and you do have to run them at revs, and you have to. That's what they're built for. If you don't do that, it ruins the car, which is trouble if you're just a regular Joe driver who is an enthusiast of driving, who likes cars because of how cars make you feel. You're much better off finding a boring car that has a sporty version to it. But you don't even need that. You just get some boring car and drive the crap out of it. Rev the engine till it redlines, and take it around corners so the tires squeal. Because it doesn't take much to get a slow car to be exciting. It really doesn't. It really doesn't, because, for example, this Hornet. It's it's a boring SUV. It is. I watch Rich Cooper, and he drives around in his McLaren and does videos about relationships or whatever, right? And then he's doing the same drive as he does in his SUV. There's nothing exciting happening, sort of thing, right? And boring cars are boring for a reason, because they do boring things. They take you to work, they take you home, they take you to the grocery store, they take your groceries home, they drop your kids off at school, they pick them up at school, they go through the drive-through to get coffee, donuts, or whatever. But the thing is that in a boring car, every once in a while, if you're a driver, you're a driving enthusiast, you want to mash the pedal. You do. You want to take it through some twisty bits. You want to. You want to get the tires to squeal a little bit. You want to get the engine to struggle, scream. And you're much safer doing that in a crappy, slow car, because the speeds aren't outrageous. You're not going to kill people. You're going to wreck your car, but you're not taking out light post after light post and guardrails. You're bouncing off of things back into traffic, back into your lane. Where is this turn? Oh, is that the turn? No, that's not the turn. And I quickly learned that growing up as a young person, you know, slow cars are cheap. Slow cars actually provide more fun during your drive than any fast car really could. You know, Driving around in a super expensive car, you're kind of like, well, I don't want to wreck it. I don't want to get scratches on it. I don't want to park it at the grocery store because you get door dings. Fixing the carbon fiber is going to now cost, $20,000. Stuff like that. And that's what happens out in the real world. And that's why people buy crappy cars. It's because, quite literally, they get trashed, not just by you, but by everybody else around you. Yeah, I'm gonna do this here. And I'm saying take this Hornet as an example because it is a boring SUV. Every SUV, like I was so dismayed when I had to go buy an SUV. SUVs for me growing like there was nothing good about them. They took a version of a boring car, usually an economy car, Civic or Corolla, like they took the base of that and then they put it on big wheels, jacked it up, and then charged an extra $20,000 for the same car. It hasn't gotten well. It's gotten a bit better, of course. I mean, engines are more sprightly. It's not the same engine hauling a bigger, heavier car around. Like there's more horsepower. There's more torque. It's gotten better to the point where I've actually bought one. The Hornet itself, yeah, looks a little bit more exciting than the average SUV. That I think it's got a little bit more oomph to it than I think than the average SUV. It's it's not the end all be all of sportiness. It's still a boring SUV that I still take to the grocery store, that I still drive to and from work in snow, in freezing rain. But it's got this little extra sportiness to it that it's always alluded to in car reviews, but it never has actually fully. Nobody's really fully explained how good it is, right? It's like driving a German car. It's a European car, right? So it's not a Toyota, it's not a Honda. It'd be like getting into a BMW or an Audi SUV. It's not meant for off road. It's a city SUV is basically what it is. And you know, it works for me out here for what I needed to do in the snow and the rough stuff that I end up having to do. But the sportiness comes through when I want to do something sporty. When I want to launch it from a light, when I want to take it through some fat, go fast through some slow corners, right? The car is capable. It does that. And I keep thinking, what if? What if I was driving a McLaren like Rich Cooper? What if I was driving a Ferrari or because I watch those videos of these cars and I go, ooh, it'd be nice to have that, right? Like as a matter of fact, even out here, what would fit in is those Charger Hellcat thingies, and or the Challenger, Charger Challenger. That's what everybody buys out here. You see them on the roads, and I guess they're performance cars. And would I rather be driving that as a daily driver? Like, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. Pulling up to driving down these highways in a Lotus Evora. I would like that. I would like that. I'm a fan of Lotus. But a McLaren or a Lamborghini or something like that. Even the Corvette. I like the Corvette. I like the new Corvette. Good looking car. Driving that everywhere. And I'd be thinking, there was a Ford GT at that last car show. I'm going, I would be driving. That car is like they're for special occasions. For that one sunny weekend that you get. And you can park it on the grass beside other car people where they're not going to ding your doors and intentionally scratch it because you got an expensive car and they don't, you know? I think you do have more fun in small cars. Boring small cars, slow cars. And as much as I go, oh, they're making crappy cars nowadays, but really that's what people drive. That's what you need them for. You need a crappy car, a boring car to keep doing your boring things. But out of that, they make sporty models of boring cars, right? One job I worked there, buddy had a Kona, a Hyundai Kona, which is kind of like an Alltrack, I guess. A smaller little SUV car thingy ish. It's tough to explain these things nowadays. And I like the styling on those things, but I didn't realize that they made like a 1.6 liter turbo fast V-spec thingy, or I don't know, whatever the sporty sport house is at Hyundai. And I thought, wow, I remember growing up and everything was a 1.6 liter without a turbo. It had a gas in all of them. My Sirocco had that. The Celica's had that. You name any four cylinder from the 80s, early 90s, and they were all like 1.6 liters. The odd 2 liter. And we had fun in them. 1.7 Civic got to, 1.8, I think Volkswagen Golf got to. But usually, I mean, it was a 1.6 liter. You throw a turbo on that thing's pushing 200 horsepower in a tiny little car like that. Yeah, it'll do your groceries. Yeah, it'll get you to and from work. But then, you don't have to switch cars to go out and have fun. You don't. And that little car will provide the enough excitement for you for that little bit of time that you get to go back and enjoy your boring things that you have to do to be everyday Joe things. That's my point. Let me know what you think in the comments. You agree or disagree? I know that there is a certain exhilaration from the big cars, the fast cars. There is a prestige that comes with it. There is the status, right? There is the notoriety. People look at you, like you, want to talk to you, that kind of thing. But just from a driving standpoint, it makes more sense actually to buy a sporty version of a boring car. This is why, these sports saloons, I guess you could say, these four-door family cars that are sporty, like the 3 Series of the BMW, like the Audis, like Mercedes does this with the AMGs, right? They're four-door family cars that have like super sporty stuff going on with them. I remember seeing that Accord Sport. That excited me. I was like, "Ooh, that's nice." That was when? That was when? That was be 2015-ish, 2018-ish. Because yeah, owning the big cars, it's very limited. It's very limited where and when you can use them and how you can drive them. And to get the exhilaration out of one of those big cars, you need time and you need money and you need lots of time. You need lots of time because if you've got lots of time, you probably got the money. Book a track. you know, your timeshare at the track. All right. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your viewership. I just looked this morning; it was like 81 subscribers. If you're new, thank you. Consider liking, consider subscribing, and hit the bell. My daughter, I keep forgetting to say the bell thing because I think people do use the bell for notifications when these videos come up. And I appreciate that you want to see it when my videos come up. All right. I'll see you on the next one.